Well, Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and forced. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that are
on the darkest times in your life. Sometimes you got to do that. I was fucked up. I hit rock bottom. But I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
Sean Diddy Combs walked into a Manhattan courtroom on May 5th, expecting routine jury selection. But Judge R.N. Subramanian quickly had the room in stitches.
I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. Got to go into therapy and go into rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace.
Things started off light, with Judge R.N. Subramanian joking about Diddy's long list of stage names and how the juror forms were longer than Lord of the Rings. Reporters laughed and rushed to get sound bites, while Diddy, serious behind wire rim glasses, sat quietly as the target of the jokes. Before any jurors were even chosen, Diddy found himself facing something far more serious: 5 major federal charges. Prosecutors accused him of running a disturbing operation that allegedly involved using pressure, expensive gifts, and cross-country trips to lure young women into harmful situations. 2 of the most serious charges included transporting people across state lines for illegal purposes and conspiracy.
I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
Prosecutors claimed the entire operation was designed to boost Diddy's brand, bringing in cash and keeping his image clean, all while hiding dark behavior behind staff, shell companies, and strict NDAs. Now 55, Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges, arguing that everything was consensual. But if he's convicted of the most serious offenses, he could face life in prison, along with losing his homes, luxury cars, and even his music royalties. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rachel Collins told the court they've got the evidence to prove it. She said jurors will see a clear trail, bank statements, travel records, and witness testimonies that shows a pattern of control, not consent. According to her, this wasn't random. It was planned and intentional.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or
Meanwhile,
his sister.
Combs' attorney, Benjamin Brafman, came out swinging. He argued that the government twisted adult relationships into something criminal, saying the case is built on flashy lifestyles and gossip, not facts. In a pretrial statement, Brafman called the indictment a patchwork of rumors, grudges, and exaggerated stories. The 5-count indictment was revealed this February, after a year-long grand jury investigation fueled by sealed lawsuits, internal company emails, and phone data that could turn the case on its head. Prosecutors allege Combs went all out, using private jets, yachts, and decked-out tour buses to fly women across the country as part of his alleged scheme.
This hearing. Number one, the government acknowledged that they offered Combs a plea deal. Combs acknowledged he has no interest in taking that. They're going to move forward with the trial.
Prosecutors say Combs sometimes lured women in with promises of modeling jobs or roles in music videos. 2 of the most serious charges accuse him of using force, fraud, or coercion in incidents that allegedly happened between 2016 and 2020. The travel-related counts focus on trips to Miami, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas, where Combs allegedly booked luxury hotel suites and brought in security teams that, according to prosecutors, restricted the women's movements. They argue it was all part of a larger plan, a so-called exploitation enterprise, which allows the government to introduce even more evidence beyond the 5 main charges. Court documents name 3 primary accusers, identified only by their initials, and suggest at least 8 more witnesses are ready to testify. In a surprising twist, a sealed filing revealed that singer Cassie Ventura, who settled a civil suit with Combs last year, has now been subpoenaed and may return to testify as a rebuttal witness. Things are moving quickly. Judge R.N. Subramonian denied the defense's request to delay the trial, saying prosecutors had turned over enough evidence, even if some digital files arrived late. To reduce media pressure on the jury, the judge ruled that jurors would remain anonymous and partially sequestered. And before jury selection began, the judge couldn't resist one more jab, joking that Combs's long list of stage names might be longer than the jury questionnaire.
We talked about the jury selection process, which one legal expert I spoke to said is probably the most important thing that you want to pay close attention to before the actual.
The jury form for this trial is no joke. A 120-question deep dive into jurors' social media habits and any past exposure to celebrity abuse cases. Because of the case's high-profile status, jury selection is expected to take 4 days. Combs arrived at court through a private tunnel beneath the building, dressed in a navy wool suit and rimless glasses. He received special permission to avoid wearing jail-issued clothes, with prison officials allowing him just 2 suits, 4 ties, and 1 pair of dress shoes to rotate during the expected 8-week trial. This criminal case comes on the heels of a flood of civil lawsuits filed against Combs since November 2023, accusing him of emotional abuse, violence, and disturbing conduct at notorious parties allegedly called freak-offs. Those civil suits are currently on hold to avoid interfering with the criminal trial. Public court records show prosecutors are coming in heavy, armed with surveillance video, encrypted messages, and bank records they claim trace hush money payments through third-party accounts. This trial is heating up fast.
That Combs will be adding 2 new attorneys to his defense team. And just to recap, Combs, who is 55 years old, could spend the rest of his life behind bars if convicted on sex trafficking and racketeering. He has pleaded not guilty.
Prosecutors say the money trail is key to proving a larger pattern of behavior tied to the main conspiracy charge. They argue that hush money payments and secret deals were all part of a carefully run operation. But Combs's legal team insists it's nothing unusual, just standard entertainment industry practices. They say the NDAs and payments were legitimate and are bringing in forensic accountants to testify that no illegal funds were moved and the financial records are clean. Still, some legal experts are drawing comparisons to the 2022 R. Kelly case, where prosecutors used similar strategies under RICO laws to secure a conviction. Charging celebrities under these laws is rare, but it's becoming more common. Loyola law professor Lori Levinson put it plainly, these kinds of cases are getting easier to prosecute. This indictment comes with serious stakes. Prosecutors are seeking to seize up to $140 million in assets, including Combs's Beverly Hills mansion, his Long Island estate, and even the rights to his Bad Boy Records music catalog. With the pressure mounting, Combs has already handed control of several businesses to interim managers. His liquor deal with Diageo is over, and Revolt Media now has a temporary board, with advertisers beginning to distance themselves. At a March court hearing, prosecutor Rachel Collins outlined the scope of the government's case: 48 digital exhibits, 31 physical pieces of evidence, and nearly 900 pages of financial records. She said they'll need 4 weeks just to present their side. The defense will get the same time if they choose to bring in their own witnesses. Defense attorney Benjamin Brafman remains firm, claiming the accusations are coming from disgruntled insiders looking for money. Outside the courthouse, he told reporters that the timelines don't add up, and that the defense has text messages from one of the main accusers thanking Combs for changing my life and asking for career help. But prosecutors counter that those messages only show how financial influence was part of the manipulation. They also plan to introduce a 2019 studio audio recording where Combs allegedly exploded at staff after a woman tried to leave a private party. Brafman argues the tape is misleading and irrelevant, and is pushing to have it excluded. Still, if Combs is convicted on the most serious charges, he's looking at a minimum of 15 years in prison. Under RICO laws, the court could stack sentences and seize major assets, potentially dismantling what prosecutors claim is an entire criminal enterprise.
Going to try and say that Diddy's mental capacity could not make it possible for him to commit these crimes, claiming that maybe drugs or alcohol could have been.
The U.S. Attorney's Office says this case is about justice for survivors and proving that no one, even the powerful, is above the law. Inside the courtroom, Combs stayed mostly quiet, speaking only to confirm he understood the charges against him. Outside, protest groups are planning daily demonstrations, though the judge has banned loudspeakers within 100 feet of the courthouse entrance. Media attention is off the charts. Over 28,000 online and broadcast mentions have already been logged, and the trial has barely begun. During the first 24 hours of jury selection, it became clear just how hard it'll be to find jurors who haven't been swayed by the publicity. Cable news is running live coverage, and streaming platforms are prepping recap specials. The pressure isn't just legal. Combs' brand is taking major hits. His monthly Spotify listeners dropped by 12% in April, and his fashion label Sean John paused its upcoming capsule collection. Still, some in the industry say a comeback is possible, pointing to artists like Michael Jackson, whose music rebounded after controversy. Music rights attorney Dina Leap noted that labels are waiting until a verdict before making any final decisions. Meanwhile, federal investigators are pushing hard. In March, they raided Combs' homes in LA and Miami, seizing hard drives and security footage servers. His legal team called the raids excessive and has filed a motion to suppress that evidence. Judge Subramanian will rule on it after jury selection wraps. Prosecutors argue the digital evidence is key, with flight logs from Combs' private jet, nightclub guest lists, and even facial recognition data tying people to specific trips and locations. Adding more fuel, the IRS has launched a separate audit focused on possible unreported income from exclusive parties. While no tax charges have been filed yet, a memo submitted in court hints at suspicious cash flow. Combs' PR team is fighting back, saying the indictment distorts his personal life and ignores his charitable efforts like donations to HBCUs and hurricane relief. His attorneys are also expected to argue that some of the allegations fall outside the 10-year statute of limitations for serious charges. But prosecutors say the alleged conspiracy remained active through January 2024, resetting the legal clock. 2. Keep things fair, Judge Subramanian has ruled that the jury will hear about previous civil settlements, but not their dollar amounts. He also barred the term hush money, requiring both sides to stick to the phrase privately negotiated agreements. If Combs is convicted, the case would move into a second forfeiture phase and a lengthy sentencing process. Appeals would go to the Second Circuit, the same court that upheld the R. Kelly conviction on similar conspiracy charges. Jury selection continues Tuesday, with opening statements set to follow once 12 jurors and 6 alternates are seated. Testimony is expected to begin May 12th. Back in court, prosecutors listed more than 20 witnesses, former employees, doctors, and airline staff, who worked charter flights between 2016 and 2023. Prosecutor Rachel Collins told the judge that each witness will help expose a years-long system of intimidation, hidden transactions, and misconduct. According to her, their stories will show how victims were moved across state lines and how the money trail was buried behind layers of secrecy.
Apparently, a couple of weeks ago, the prosecution offered Diddy a plea deal, which he turned down. We don't know the details of what that plea deal entailed, but he said he's not taking it. This is coming after they've added additional charges, like the second superseding.
The case took a turn with the addition of new charges through a second superseding indictment. Defense attorney Benjamin Brafman wasn't pleased, accusing the prosecution of ambushing the defense by introducing last-minute witnesses who only appeared after the March raids on Combs' homes in LA and Miami. Judge Subramanian disagreed, ruling that the witnesses were fair game. He reminded everyone that the prosecution only needs to disclose its witness list after the jury is selected, which led to a tense exchange on the second day of jury selection. Jury selection has been slow, with attorneys focusing on whether potential jurors have been influenced by other high-profile sexual assault cases. By late afternoon, just 9 jurors had been provisionally cleared from a pool of 150, each having been asked a detailed 120-question survey covering media habits, music preferences, and views on celebrity charity work. Outside the courtroom, prosecutor Rachel Collins told reporters that the prosecution intends to show how Diddy's brand was used as a weapon, turning the glamour into a trap. She referenced the infamous Cassie video, where Combs is seen dragging her through a hotel, suggesting it as part of the narrative the prosecution aims to build.
In a hotel from 2016, the judge says that it can be included after Diddy's defense team had been trying to have it not included.
Prosecutor Rachel Collins revealed that the evidence includes encrypted message screenshots and rideshare receipts linking people to specific locations. But defense attorney Benjamin Brafman countered, claiming these were just regular, consensual communications and that the ride data was selectively presented to tell a one-sided story. Inside the courtroom, both sides clashed over expert testimony. The prosecution wanted to bring in a clinical psychologist to explain trauma bonding, while the defense sought a music industry consultant to explain common NDA practices. Judge Subramanian said he would decide on the experts before opening statements. Began. Then came another major development. A sealed court document, now partially unsealed, showed that the government subpoenaed hotel security logs from major spots in Miami Beach, Vegas, and LA. These logs allegedly track room key usage by Combs and 3 unnamed accusers on nights that align with the indictment. If the data checks out, legal analyst Lori Levinson believes it could be damning, showing that Combs and the accusers were together in locked-down locations just before the alleged incidents. The drama didn't stop there. 2 of Combs's former bodyguards, granted immunity, are set to testify. One claims he was instructed to confiscate phones at Diddy's parties using a red code protocol, while the other says he delivered cash-filled envelopes to secret drop-off spots. Brafman dismissed their testimonies, suggesting they were just disgruntled former employees trying to cut deals to avoid unrelated gun charges. He added that payroll records would show they were fired for theft, not mistreatment. Judge Subramanian quickly intervened, warning both sides that personal attacks would not be tolerated unless supported by credible evidence. Outside the courthouse, tensions were high. Court officers had to escort juror candidates through a separate entrance to avoid the protests outside. Members of the advocacy group Silence Breakers stood with signs demanding justice for survivors, while a small group of fans blasted old-school bad boy tracks from portable speakers. Inside, the atmosphere was much more serious. Combs, dressed in a charcoal suit, kept his head down, only breaking silence to discuss jury notes with his lawyers. His mother, Janice Combs, sat quietly 3 rows back, jotting notes in a small notebook. Then the prosecution dropped another bombshell. Financial forensics expert Olivia Grant had combed through 2,400 transactions tied to Combs's LLCs from 2018 to 2022. According to her report, $30.4 million was transferred out of these companies through cashier checks labeled as consulting or event advance payments to individuals with no legitimate service contracts. Grant also found that $7.6 million was wired from Bad Boy Touring to an offshore account in Nevis, which was later used to purchase a luxurious Hills mansion, a property now targeted for seizure.
Magazine, they said prosecutors recently filed a motion disputing any testimony that might show that Sean Diddy Combs didn't have, quote, the mental capacity to commit the crimes he's accused of because of the effects of drugs or alcohol. The motion filed on April 27th references apparent testimony from a psychiatrist on behalf of the defense and asked the judge to prevent his testimony.
Brafman quickly shot down the prosecution's claims, calling the financial report speculative math. He argued that short-term consultants are common in entertainment and defended the Nevis account as legitimate, fully disclosed in IRS filings. The judge, not willing to let things drag on, set strict deadlines for expert disclosures and ordered both sides to prepare clear, summarized charts for the jury. The prosecution revealed that 2 accusers will testify under pseudonyms, sharing stories of being scouted at nightclubs, promised modeling deals, and then pushed into uncomfortable situations at Combs's properties. One accuser claims she was secretly recorded and threatened with a career blacklist if she spoke out. The defense, however, plans to counter with email exchanges showing this accuser thanking Combs for life-changing opportunities and even asking for travel money. Prosecutor Rachel Collins dismissed this, saying the messages didn't show gratitude but rather how financial dependency was used to control. Music rights attorney Dina Lept, who has worked on similar celebrity cases, remarked on how murky the line is between business and personal boundaries in the celebrity world. Collins, in her closing argument, reminded the jury that they must decide if behavior that looks sleazy crosses into criminal territory, which is the essence of the case. Meanwhile, the fallout outside the courtroom continued. Sean John officially announced they were halting a summer collaboration, and Spotify added a disclaimer banner to Combs' songs, directing listeners to news updates. Bad Boy Records stayed silent, while financial analysts warned that if streaming platforms push Combs' catalog down, his earnings could take a major hit. However, there was some hope after R. Kelly's 2022 conviction, where his listeners dropped 19%, but later crept back. The IRS also jumped into the fray, notifying the court that they might file a restitution claim if Combs is convicted. They're in the middle of a parallel audit linked to income from his notorious freak-off parties. No tax charges have been added yet, but prosecutors hinted they could supersede the indictment if needed. As the trial heats up, Combs will be ditching jail clothes in favor of regular attire, with his lawyers arguing that the evidence shows consenting adults engaged in intimate acts. The judge ruled that any new civil settlements between Combs and accusers must be filed under seal to prevent potential witness intimidation. Additionally, the court restricted cameras inside, allowing only courtroom sketches. Artist Elizabeth Williams will be releasing daily illustrations through a media pool. Federal marshals also testified that social media threats had increased security, but reassured the court that Combs wasn't facing any real danger inside the building. Jury selection, now dragging into Wednesday, has been slow. The judge made it clear, no more delays. Attorneys must pick up the pace, or they'll face consequences. As of now, 9 jurors are locked in, with more questioning scheduled for tomorrow. Key rulings on expert witnesses are expected before opening statements, tentatively set for May 12th. This case is moving fast, and we're tracking every twist and turn. If you're following this legal drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a drop. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is this a fall from grace or just another celebrity under fire? Share with your crew, and we'll see you on the next one.